Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out.
What would you say you do here?
I am the greatest.
You're listening to The Review on the OSG Podcasting Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Review. You are listening to the OSG Sports College Football Podcast on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network, featuring us, the online sports guys. You'll notice this week it's only two of us, just me and Brother John. Me, OSG Phil, him, OSG Nelson. We are the online sports guys. You can find us on the internet at theonlinesportsguys.com. And I probably should move my microphone closer to where I am so I can actually be heard.
There you go.
John, and yet another in the long list of busy weeks.
Yep.
Not only in the world of sports, but in the world in general. We'll start off with the topic that is still dominating conversation today, and that is the fight for equality.
Yep.
Probably one of the bigger stories in that realm would be this past weekend up in Clemson. Clemson Tigers quarterback Trevor Lawrence and a bunch of his teammates led a march for equality on campus. The demonstration included an 8-minute and 46-second moment of silence and a powerful speech by Trevor Lawrence, along with a lot of support by his coach, Dabo Swinney.
Yep.
We talked last week about the importance of athletes having their platform, finding their voice, and doing what they can to make a difference. Your thoughts on this? Something that came on the heels of Clemson voting to rename its honors college, that was formally named for a former vice president and slavery proponent, John C. Calhoun.
Right.
Big deal. Good move by Lawrence.
Yeah.
Speaks volumes to the kind of person that Trevor is, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've known the T-Law has been this way since his high school days, and he has been one of those student athletes that has been at the fore of saying what he thinks, doing the right thing, wanting to be a part of the community. That we've covered the story in the past with Trevor where he's wanted to do things that were for cause and donations and such, and he ran afoul of the NCAA before the NCAA realized, hey, he's trying to do something good here, and they changed their mind, and they redirected his charity activities to where it fell, I guess, under their legal purview, and everything could check all the boxes when it came to the NCAA rules and regs. But to be honest, considering that you and I have covered T-Law for probably the last 5 or 6 years, this is part and parcel to who he is as an individual. And, in conversations that I've had with Coach Swinney about Trevor, stand-up guy, stand-up young man, and this does not surprise me when it comes to the dossier of wanting to do well for everyone in the community that we've seen from Trevor. So once again, just another part where we can all see, not just those of us who've seen him in our footprint, but for college football and for the United States to see the kind of individual that Trevor is. Fantastic stuff by Trevor and his teammates up there at Clemson. And it's just another stake geographically in where folks are wanting to turn their attentions.
Yeah, the other noteworthy item out of this is Coach Swinney has caught some heat here over the last few weeks for some things that have happened with his team in the past. But he spoke up as well, saying that it's an historic and challenging time, and saying that he tells the team, his players, challenge is what creates challenge. And speaking up and making his voice heard as well, something that hasn't necessarily, he's gotten a little bit of grief. I don't know how I'm trying to think of a good way to phrase this. I'm not sure how warranted all the heat that he had gotten was.
Right. Yeah.
But good thing for him to speak up at this point.
And I think at the same time, we're all learning, and I think that that's key. I think that there are two elements that are a part of this process for me. One, communication, and two is learning. And in everything that I've been trying to absorb over the last little while, you sit there and you file information away, you file situations away, and you try to learn and evolve and grow. And I think that we're seeing that not just from Clemson, not just from Dabo Swinney, but from a lot of individuals in the present tense, and you just hope that it continues.
Indeed it does. One of the other things that has come up over the past week in regards to this, a request made by athletes at the University of Texas requesting several issues be addressed on campus, including the replacement of the Eyes of Texas song.
Mm-hmm.
For those not familiar, the song is something that athletes, particularly in football, are required basically by the school to sing at the end of the games.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think again of the best way to say this.
The history of the performance of the song actually goes back to 1903, if memory serves, where it was performed in blackface.
Yes, and I was trying to think of the right words to put it out there.
Yeah, and so you definitely can understand where where the players are coming from. It's it has a horrible history attached to it, and so no, I completely see where the players are coming from here, and they have said that they are not going to do any kind of workout until these issues are addressed. And the issue with the Eyes of Texas is only one of a few issues that they have, but a lot of folks are drawn to that, obviously, because of what we know about the song and its piece to Longhorn football history. So it is a big thing to look at as we go forward here. How is this addressed by the administration at the University of Texas?
And last item on this topic, one that's kind of a little bit scary. Report out of Fort Collins, Colorado this weekend that how do I phrase this again?
Okay. Here's how it came across from John Taylor at College Football Talk. So let me lay out how he wrote it. According to the Coloradoan, an unidentified playing member of the Colorado State University football program and another man were held at gunpoint late last week. The reason why, because another man thought they were members of Antifa. And the identity of the player obviously has not been divulged. And so the man from Loveland, Colorado, faces felony charges after calling police saying there were two men wearing masks near his home. And this is from the Coloradoan's account. He said he was armed and was going to confront them. The caller said he thought the two were members of the anti-fascist political group Antifa. Officers responded, found the gentleman dressed in fatigues. I'm not going to mention his name because he's not worth it. Found the gentleman dressed in fatigues, brandishing a rifle while holding two men on the ground at gunpoint. The two men in their 20s were roofing salesmen wearing polo shirts with the logo of their employers and surgical masks, going from house to house following a recent hailstorm. Both are in their 20s. The gentleman was arrested on one count each of suspicion of felony menacing and false imprisonment following the incident. A letter sent out by Colorado State with several names attached, including head football coach Steve Adazio, addressed the development, quote, "Our student is a young man of color while the perpetrator is white, regardless of what investigators learn or reasons the perpetrator gives. We know this. Our student got up Thursday morning, worked out with his team, then showered, dressed, and went to work," the community letter said. Quote, "Hours later, he was facing a stranger with a gun and hearing police sirens that had been inexplicably called on him, given what we've seen happening in cities across this country. We know all too well that this encounter could have proceeded very differently," and that is the first paragraph of the note from Colorado State University. But scary stuff out of Colorado State.
It is, without getting too political here, since we are more of a sports show than we are politics, it's to some extent, this is the whole point of the debate that we're currently having, is the black males particular being identified as a person of trouble but without actually doing anything. And it's something that they've got to be they've got to deal with almost on a daily basis. It's probably a good thing at this point we don't know the actual name of the football player, but it just speaks volumes to what's going on right now, and just glad that he's okay.
Yes.
Not sure what's going to happen to the suspect in this case. There's some conflicting reports in terms of what his motivation for doing this, but that all being said, it still should have never, ever happened. Yet things in this nature happen on an almost daily basis here.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
We're still in the world of COVID. The latest news coming out with battle of the virus is many campuses begin opening to athletes. Some schools already starting to do voluntary workouts. And then there's the University of Houston, who had to already suspend workouts after 6 of their student athletes tested positive for the coronavirus.
That is correct. Yeah, and your facial expression is about right. Okay, and this goes to a deeper point that we'll get into with Ohio State after this one. But once again, Michael David Smith, Pro Football Talk. So the university announces late last week it's bringing workouts to a stop because 6 student athletes tested positive. Only football and basketball players have been back at UH working out only since June 1st. And the only athletes tested were those who either showed symptoms or came from a place where the virus is rampant, according to the Houston Chronicle. The NCAA only begun allowing athletes to participate in team workouts 2 weeks ago. Several NCAA schools have already publicly disclosed some athletes have tested positive. Auburn, Alabama, Arkansas State, Boise, Clemson, FSU, Iowa, Iowa State, Marshall, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, Texas, Texas Tech, and UCF have all had positive tests. So there you go. Now.
Yeah, and the list keeps growing.
Right. Okay. So my whole point on the University of Houston is probably going to blend into my point about Ohio State. And Ohio State has now put out there, and this is from our friends at the USA Today, that student athletes have to sign a waiver now to participate in voluntary workouts. So let me see if
Your own choice, not ours.
Let me see if I understand here. One, that piece of paper that Ohio State has put out there gives them plausible deniability when it comes to anything and holds them harmless if anything is to go down. And then you can figure out if someone comes to campus and somebody tests positive, then they can sit there and try to work the legal wranglings of the calendar to figure something out. But what this does is accentuates the notion behind the quote unquote voluntary workout in my mind. Because you have these schools who want their kids to come to campus to be a part of voluntary workouts. But once you have a voluntary workout,
how voluntary is it?
Right. And then the notion of, okay, it's a voluntary workout, but honestly, how voluntary is it? And if you don't show up because you think that you're trying to keep an eye on your health, here's something to keep an eye on after this football season, in whatever form it takes, concludes. How many student athletes either go portaling or just do not have their scholarship renewed? Because remember, scholarships are 1-year deals. This is not a 5-year thing that is all blocked together. This is a renewable 1-year deal. How many athletes from football teams I'll just go ahead and say the Power 5, in Power 5 schools either portal or don't have it renewed because they decide not to show up for these voluntary workouts? That's my biggest concern in all of this, is that once again, hey, we want you to come here to be, campus and be a part of our voluntary workout, But if you yourself feel, or your family feels, or you have extenuating circumstances involving family members that would cause you to be a little apprehensive in going to campus to be a part of these voluntary workouts.
No, you had it right the first time.
I did. Yeah, I know. It was they're involuntarily voluntary. How many of these student athletes are going to get screwed over because they don't show up for voluntary workouts? Houston, really, for me, the University of Houston seems to be the most careless example in all of this that we've seen. It's like, yeah, okay, we're not going to test you when you hit campus, and then you have voluntary workouts, but you get your voluntary workouts, 6 athletes test positive, and now you've shut the whole thing back down again. So there's a lack of logic that has happened here, and we've had our first couple of cases of a lack of logic in voluntary workouts. And sadly, I don't think this is going to be the last of this, but Ohio State getting out in front of this in a legal sense. Hey, sign this piece of paper holding us harmless if you come here for your voluntary workouts. Give me a blanking break.
Yeah, and I know Brother Wilkie, when he watches this show during the course of the week, is going to cringe due to the fact that we're talking about this. But the fact remains, it's an issue. Yeah. We're seeing cases starting to rebound and spike a little bit again in several states that have relaxed what they're doing.
And Houston is debating reinstituting the shelter-in-place order because of the numbers, that there's such a concern.
Right. And I think what we're seeing here is the rush to get back out on the field. The NCAA is pretty much granted or given the green light to schools to do whatever they think works in their situation so they can be ready to play. And we're also getting ever so close to that imaginary window where teams need to get players on campus up to speed with things and trained and ready to play in an actual contact football game. Yeah. Because we're not that far away from the season at this point. We're talking about, what is it? We're winding towards the end of June.
10 weeks?
Yeah, thereabouts. We're looking at really the last week of August as kickoff for week 0 as of the scheduled games in college football. And I have my doubts in terms of whether they're going to actually be able to play these games. I have a feeling that the way things are progressing right now, they're going to force games down the school's throat one way or the other just because of the financial burden that's being placed on everybody.
Yeah.
But we've also the flip side of that being that we've seen schools that have started back up and it thus far has had no issues.
Yeah.
Because there's quite a few schools in that situation.
Right.
And how do you balance it, and how do you get it to where you've got everybody on that same playing field to start the season? And what scares me is we're talking about a season at this point where you're looking at in the FBS, for example, with 130 schools, you're talking about maybe 75 to 80 of them who might be ready to play on week 0 or week 1, but then you've got another 50 who won't be.
Right. And the NAIA actually has trimmed their schedule by a regular season game. And in the Mid-South Conference, they have actually reoriented their schedules to where now you have teams playing home and homes this year instead of just the one matchup, the non-conference games. You're going to have teams playing home and homes against conference opponents, even with a game less. So the season that normally would start in the NAI would be September 5th. I think it's going to be the weekend of September 12th or the equivalency. So your game ones that you have on your calendars in the NAI now are officially skipped, and some conferences are trying to reorient their schedules to where travel will be less of an issue, and you're still going to have your competitions, and some conferences have already come to the fore in figuring out ideas.
Yeah, we're already in a world now where the NBA has announced that they tentatively have plans to move their season forward, but within a totally contained bubble-like atmosphere.
Right.
NASCAR's already started back up with events, and there's talk that sometime in July we're going to start seeing fans show up in the stands.
Right.
Something I'll believe when I actually see.
Yeah, you did have 1,000 at Homestead this past weekend, but it was socially distanced and by invitation only.
Right. At the rate things are going, college football right now has really been the only one of the sports that have mentioned where we've got a group showing back up in the same place at the same time. And that's been the problem.
Yeah.
We've got places where, like we said earlier, rules have been relaxed. I know here in the state of Georgia where we're based, the governor has relaxed rules where you can get up to 50 people in the same place at the same time, which is roughly half of a University of Georgia football squad, if not less than half.
Yeah.
But we're still not there yet. No. And it just seems to me like we're seeing schools having to be forced to make a decision.
Yeah.
We're at that point now. We've talked all spring long about getting to that point, getting to that drop deadline, getting to that line in the sand where we've got to make a decision and commit one way or the other. And it looks like right now that decision is we're going forward. We'll try to test, but if somebody tests positive, that's not our fault.
Well, that's the thing right now is that what I am wanting to hear from a lot of the Power Fives, from all the Power Fives, who am I kidding, from any college that wants to have anything resembling football this year, what are your testing procedures? How frequent is it going to be? Are you going to test those who are asymptomatic as much as you should be testing those who are showing symptoms? And what is your outlook and what is your level of prescience and anticipation so that you can latch onto something before it happens instead of being reactive and being proactive in a situation, so you can have a socially distanced attendance. So you can have all of these things that are a part of the community and a part of the fabric that we all talk about and what it means, because we all know what it means. But it also means being smart about your approach. And I want to hear what the NCAA and the Power Fives and the Group of Fives and the FCS and D2 and D3 and NAIA, I want to know what your testing procedures are so you can get back out on the field, so we all can be there to cover games as safely as possible and so we can be as healthy as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah, we got a lot of ground to cover for a lot of schools here when it comes to getting back up and running.
Yep.
This is by no means the last we've heard of that.
No.
Why don't we take a break here? It sounds like a good place to do that. As your picture went away, I will keep talking. When we come back in the second half of the show, the NCAA makes a move to encourage their athletes to vote. Name, image, and likeness back in the news again. And the name Brett Bielema resurfaces in regards to college football. All that and more when we return for the second half of the review. You are listening to the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Enjoy all of our shows from the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. The OSG Sports app is up and running. Download it today.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is Jim Rockford.
Congratulations, everybody. You've made it through the commercial break and to the second block of the review. We are You are listening to the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. This is our college football podcast, The Review. We are the online sports guys. I am OSG Phil. He is OSG Nelson.
Frozen
and we're
in
talking
time.
college football because, well, we're at that time of year where, well, it's always the time of year to talk college football, John, isn't it?
Damn right.
In the first block of the show, we talked about some of the topical items going on in terms of the world as we know it, both socially and in the health aisle. Two issues that have kind of dominated conversation for the first 6 months of the year. This is where we hit rapid fire, news, notes, nuggets, and things left unsaid. We'll start off this block by talking about something the NCAA has done, and that is to encourage its member schools to designate this November 3rd as a day off for major college sports.
Love it.
It's called the hashtag All Vote No Play campaign on Twitter. And I think this is a good move by the NCAA to try and encourage their youngsters, their athletes to get there to vote, to make their voices heard and make their vote count. And quite honestly, considering what we saw here in Georgia on our primary day just this past week, it's probably going to be an all-day commitment for some of these guys.
Well, but also remember that the out-of-staters, and this is your public service announcement for those who wish to vote in November. If you're out of state, get your absentee ballot as quickly as possible once they've figured out who is going to be on the ballot in November. Get it mailed to your dorm, get it mailed to wherever, get it mailed to your apartment, mail it back. Make sure that you can find, that you can get as much proof as possible that it made it to where it was supposed to go. Be a part of the process, and this is the way to do it. Be a part of it, get it done, get out and vote, and I cannot wait to see the 18 to 22-year-old demo and how many folks from 18 to 24 actually get out to vote in November. But if you're living away from your home district, get your absentee ballot now.
Yeah, I mean, there's already schools that have announced that they're going to be they've already determined their athletes will get the day off, including Georgia Tech here in the Atlanta area, UCLA, Gonzaga, Kansas, Wisconsin, all stepping up to the plate and saying our kids are going to have their time on that day. The Mid-American Conference actually trying to reschedule a scheduled football game between Buffalo and Northern Illinois.
Good on
them. That being said as well, Georgia Tech coach Eric Irvino, one of the voices to lead this movement and to try to push the NCAA to make the commitment, said that while it's a step in the right direction by the NCAA, he's a little disappointed because it's only a recommendation instead of something that they said make it mandatory.
Make it so, number one. Drop this and make it go now.
Speaking of the NCAA, we talked in the past on this show about name, image, and likeness, and that's the ability for college athletes to make some money based off the use of their name, image, and likeness. Name, image, and likeness in marketing materials.
Yeah.
The NCAA has kind of fought this. They've put off making any kind of a real commitment or decision to this proposal. The University of Florida, the state of Florida.
So here comes Ron DeSantis.
Has stepped up to the plate and has pretty much put a deadline on it as he signed a bill proposed by his state legislature, kicking in their version of a name, image, and likeness legislation by July 1st of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
That still buys a year for the NCAA, who's dealing with a lot of other stuff on their plate at this particular moment, but at the same time has been, well, I'll just go ahead and say they've been dragging their lazy asses when it comes to getting this legislation through. Is this going to actually force their hand and make them do something, or is this still just all bluster?
Well, I think,
or are we going to see legal action coming?
I think you're probably going to see legal action, but what the NCAA saw here is what they didn't want to see. You have a state and a governor basically going rogue and turning it into the Wild West, and sitting there and saying, okay, well, if you're not going to do something, I'm going to do it. But I think that it's going to be stuck in court more than most. I think that currently, in anticipation of this rule, keep an eye on portaling and see, and this isn't just for the bigger schools, for your Power Fives. See how this impacts your Go 5 schools in the state of Florida just as much. Your Florida Atlantics, your Florida Internationals, your South Floridas, your Central Floridas. See if it impacts them and to what degree, because you and I both know that in Gainesville and in Tallahassee and in Miami, that, you're in a major college environment, you're going to have your mega boosters chasing after you. Hey, come and cut a promo for my car dealership, and here's a car. You're going to see that. I want to see what the trickle-down effect is for your Go Fives when it comes to the state of Florida. But what this does is it creates a scenario where you're going to have 50 sets of rules. If Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, sets a set for the state of Florida, how different is it going to be in the other 49 states, instead of having the NCAA doing something off the top and saying, okay, here are your bylaws. Once again, the NCAA is having to be reactive in this case because of what Ron DeSantis has done right now, laying down the gauntlet in Florida.
Yeah, and for those wondering what we're talking about, the NCAA did step up and say you can make a little bit of money, but it's limited in terms of its your ability to do that. Their committee coming out and saying that if you're an athlete and you do a commercial with using your name, as long as you don't use your school logo name, and say that you're so-and-so quarterback for big city university football, then you're okay to make a little bit of money off of it.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to be far enough for the athletes. It doesn't seem to be far enough for some of the states who believe that this is something that the kids have a right to do. And I think we're still on the cusp of galactic change when it comes to this. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think the NCAA is going to be forced to do it because they don't really have a choice. This has been something that's been talked about for now going on 2 years, and we really haven't gotten very far. We've gotten a little bit of give by the NCAA, who has declared way back when, 1966, that college athletes were amateurs and shouldn't be able to get money for what they are doing due to the fact that they're getting a scholarship to play football.
Mm-hmm.
Which not all of them are, and B, when this was enacted back in the early days of college football popularity, there wasn't the opportunity to make the kind of money and bank that schools are making by selling jerseys with players' names on it, by marketing, pretty much anything with a player's name on it. It doesn't stop the coach from making an extra couple $100,000 for standing there with Ford. I'm Coach Kirby Smart for Ford Trucks. Here's your $100,000 check, Kirby.
Plus your truck.
Yes. Athletes can't do that. They get room and board, and one meal a day at the dorm. That's good enough, even though most of the kids that are in college without some sort of supplement or stipend above that pretty much don't have money to go to the local McDonald's on the weekend.
Yeah.
So this is something long overdue. Hopefully, I'm not a fan of necessarily Ron DeSantis, good on him for kind of forcing the NCAA's hand. We'll see where this goes. We've got about a year before this comes into play. Something tells me this coming off season, however long or short it's going to be, I think we're going to see some movement in that direction, because quite honestly, we're just about at T-minus 1 year and counting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Clock ticks.
Tick, tick.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Moving on, one of your favorite coaches and mine, and a guy that probably would make Brother Wilkie's face cringe by bringing up his name.
Yeah.
Former University of Arkansas coach Brett Bielema.
Oh, I heard about this.
Has filed suit with the Razorback Foundation over his buyout.
Of course he has.
He's looking for roughly over $7 million that he claims he's owed by the Razorback Foundation, who agreed to buy him out in 2018 for, get this, $11.9 million.
And now he wants, I think, twice that, right?
Yeah, that payout was going to be $320,000 a month. Wow, that is mind-boggling.
Let's continue to argue over large numbers to the left of the decimal.
Bielema's lawsuit says that he got a demand letter from the Razorback Foundation saying that they were, quote, well aware of his material breaches to obtain replacement employment, and they demanded he return $4.2 million of the money that they had already paid him. Bielema, by the way, is an assistant coach right now with the New York Giants, so he was actually employed, though in 2018 he was technically a volunteer coach for the New England Patriots.
Volunteer.
And in 2019 was the defensive line coach for the Patriots, but he worked that 2018 season as a volunteer,
yes,
which means he probably wasn't getting paid, at least by the Patriots.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure really what the words are for this.
About normal?
It speaks more volumes than I can think of to the absurdity of college football coaching salaries in the ever-changing revolving door of college football coaches and their buyout clauses. And it's probably a big reason why we're talking about college football programs who are struggling to keep themselves afloat and are panicked over the thought of losing all of their money this coming football season.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you feel for Bielema here?
No. I don't feel for the university either. Get it over with, you two. Stop bickering over 8 figures to the left of the decimal place. You should have taken his buyout. He should have just gone off into the sunset, tried to become something of an NFL coach, a position coach, before he wants to eventually go back into the college ranks after people have forgotten that he was a college head coach at some location insert here. You know, give it 4 or 5 years. He would have had a run as a position coach in the National Football League. Then he would have gotten the Jones to sit there and go, I want to be a head coach all over again. Instead, he's back in the news for $11 million.
Yeah, but I see where he's coming from. He's owed the money based on a contract.
Yeah.
Ooh. Wouldn't you want to kind of enjoy and have a little bit of fun?
Yeah, but
knowing that you've got a paycheck coming.
Well, but you know what? This is the incredibly kismetic transition into the continuing adventures of Jeff Long, by the way.
Oh, God. Yeah, yeah, because for those of you not aware, they were in such a hurry to get rid of Bielema and buy him out. They replaced him with the dreaded Chad Morris, who went 4-18 in 2 seasons, including an 0-14 record against SEC foes. And while Bielema by no means was the guy who was going to lead Arkansas to the promised land that they seem to think that they're going to be able to get to.
They're in the swampland still.
Yeah. They set their program back a decade by making the move, getting rid of him, bringing in Morris.
So in 2018, now for those that watched the show last week and listened to the show or accessed the show however you did, you remember how we went down the rabbit hole of Kansas and the not wanting to pay David Beatty his buyout over a 6-month period. And we had come to the conclusion that Jim Rockford and Boston Legal, or the folks at LA Law, the McKinsey Law Firm, or Ally McBeal's folks in Boston helped out in all of this. And we had anticipated.
Pop culture 90s references.
Yep.
Actually spanned 3 decades.
I did. So we had anticipated here on the show that the university, that Kansas, had actually paid more than the actual buyout was worth. And we have empirical evidence to prove this now, that Kansas has paid more than the buyout to buy out David Beatty. Now, here we go. All right, so $3 million was the initial number, supposed to be paid over a 6-month period in 2018 by athletic director Jeff Long. So this is turning into the Jeff Long block. I know, the Jeff Long block on the show. So, okay. Then basically Jeff Long says, nah. And that's basically is what he said. It's like, nah, not going to do it. So then you go into court, and then you have folks arguing. They initially have agreed to a settlement of $2.55 million. So $450 million less to go ahead and pay off. Yeah, $450,000 less to just go ahead and pay off David Beatty. They're going to pay him $2.55 million instead of the $3 million. But the Kansas City Star has found invoices to Jim Rockford and Boston Legal.
3 decades worth of private eyes for those watching at home.
So, and the Kansas City Star in their article said, this is what we have found in invoices so far. They have found invoices in trying to tackle this lawsuit of $473,730.04. So they have spent $23,000 more than the $3 million that they should have just paid David Beatty in the first place, said, nah, went to court, decided to settle, and they've still paid more than that particular amount of money that they should have paid in the first place, and you would not have paid this amount of money. So once again, this is what the Kansas City Star has said. This is what we have found so far. Yes, so Kansas has in fact paid more to not pay David Beatty than to pay David Beatty.
God, I can only imagine who got close to $500,000 just to figure out a way to legally get out of that contract.
Jim Rockford.
Yeah, his pay rate went up quite a bit in the last 50 years.
Well, he had to pay. He had to pay Angel. He had to make sure that Rocky had a good pickup truck and all those things. And so, yeah, I'm guessing that the number of messages that Jeff Long left on Jim Rockford's answering machine were very plentiful. Because obviously, if you've paid $473,000 to cover a $450,000 gap, you're leaving a lot of messages. So I just, when we went down that Jeff Long rabbit hole, I had to bring in the Kansas thing, and it was too good to be true. And it was.
Yeah, I can only imagine it. I wonder who's going to foot the bill for that. The Athletic Association.
Oh, no doubt.
The athletic department itself, the Kansas students.
Yes.
Or some other rainy day fund.
Yes. Choice D, all the above.
Yeah, I mean, the economics of college football to me sometimes can be mind-boggling. The amount of money that they piss away just because they have it.
Yep.
And then they're now pleading, we're going to go broke if we don't play a season this year. And it circles back to what we were talking about in the first block of the show with the COVID.
Yes.
And kind of the voluntary, involuntary workouts, because we got to start practicing now if we're going to start our season on time.
Right.
And it's really all just kind of one big vicious circle, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. What else is on your hit list real quick before we go?
Those are kind of the biggies for me.
Sweet. I figured the Jeff Long block and the revisiting of the Rockford files was definitely the way to do it this week.
Oh, yeah. Good way to kind of be a kicker. The last story, not really a softy story, but kind of a humorous story to wrap up.
The continuation of our stuff. Okay, since I'm frozen, as you folks who are watching on the video side have figured out, because the beautiful part of connections, why don't I cut the promo and you show them what I'm talking about this week, since I'm the one that usually shows people what we're talking about when you cut the promo.
Okay, you just made up time for me to do that, so please, by all means, Go ahead.
All right. Thanks for picking us up and accessing us however you are doing so, whether it's at theonlinesportsguys.com for all the news that's fit to write about on a weekly basis. Do not forget to download the OSG Sports app, available iOS and Android. And as you're watching on the video version, Phil is showing you the iPhone version. I have the Android version, but it is currently frozen at time.
Mystery Theater.
Yeah.
Would you like some more pancakes?
Yes.
Sorry, that's an old SCTV reference that I might have to drop in here.
Count Floyd's Monster Chiller Horror Theater to promote the apps. Don't forget to download the OSG Sports app. If it's free, it's you. So it's free and it's you.
Get it, boys and girls.
Yes. Soccer Down Here app available also on iOS and Android. Don't forget you can watch the show on our YouTube channel, OSG Sports /Soccer Down Here. Don't forget to join us on all of our social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter at OSG Sports, at OSG Phil, at OSG Nelson, Jay Wilkerson 16. Also, you can check us out on Zingo TV channel 250. If you miss us on our YouTube channel, this show runs on Wednesday afternoons and then throughout the week. So Zingo TV, download our apps, download our stuff, read our stuff, be a part of the whole process when it comes to everything that we want to cover on a weekly basis. And this particular show having to do with a frozen Phil Cantor talking about college football, since I'm already frozen, talking about college football. So the voice of font should be very, very prevalent in the second block of the show. That's a show.
Yes, that is a show, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate your patronage, your listening time. And we are the OSG Sports team. For OSG Nelson, I am OSG Phil. You have been listening to The Review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
There's got to be a scarier part to that movie than that.